Liddell! This isn't the story of the greatest fighter to ever live.
Oh, this is a slugfest early.
This is the story of the old school.
Chuck trying to tee up. Chuck caught him.
Where MMA was the Wild West.
Burning Tiger White has got incredible Hardy. Oh, kick right here. That's it.
Down he goes. Chuck Liddell has knocked down Burning.
Filled with gladiators who slung fists with reckless abandon.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
But none among them was quite like Chuck Liddell. Chuck was raised by a single mom in Santa Barbara, California. He was a wrestler at Cal Poly College while studying to be an accountant.
If you weren't an MMA fighter, what would you be?
Well, I have a degree in accounting.
You also played a year of football.
How were you at wrestling in college?
I was decent.
He crossed paths with John Hackelman. Hackelman was a former fighter who had started a new type of training facility they called The Pit. It was here Liddell developed his Hawaiian Kempo style he became known for.
I started training Chuck Liddell here in 1991.
Grueling, old-school workouts.
You know, after I won in the UFC, he said, well, I got this IBC Brazil tournament.
For his fights, he was making little money.
It was just a one-fight deal for I think $1,000 to show and $3,000 more to win. Yeah, it was interesting. It had a net from the bottom. It was in a ring, so ropes.
He had one goal when he entered the cage: war.
It ended the fight with me having him stuck under there and just punching him in the head through the neck.
When you're whooping some guy's ass to a fishnet in Brazil, did you ever think it was going to come to this?
I was bartending, and I was 28, 29 years old. I still bartending.
Before he made it big, Chuck worked as a bartender and bouncer on the Santa Barbara Strip.
So I was kind of like, I love this life, but I'm bartending and kickboxing. At some point, I got to move on. So right when it was starting to go, you know what? It's about time to get a real job. This fight came up. Bare knuckle, no rules. Groin strikes were legal, headbutts were legal, road strike. You couldn't eye gouge, you couldn't bite. One of them knocked the guy out in the first round, and a guy came up to me and said, "Hey, man, do you want to fight in the UFC?"
Now would be a great time to mention the very lax steroid testing policy of the early UFC.
Boom, perfect timing.
Liddell, so devastating with strikes. And Randleman.
The Iceman became known for two things: stuffing takedown attempts and knocking dudes out.
Exactly as advertised, Liddell throws the punch, he connects, and this one is over quickly. What a great reaction.
For the winner, the Iceman, Chuck
His name is Chuck Liddell, and he's a kickboxer from San Luis Obispo.
It was a brutal time for the sport, where there was no consensus on how to train and fight MMA.
Set up. Put it together. Blitz.
Chuck had a relentless come-forward style.
Chuck Liddell, very interesting looking individual. Could be straight out of a video game. This is Chuck Liddell's first time in Pride.
It was an experimental era where disciplines were merging for the first time.
I think both men are going to save the bomb for the second or third round.
Oh!
Wow, I just hit this guy with a shot and knocked him down, but he just got right back up like a Terminator.
That
Terminator is out there. It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. And it absolutely will not stop until you are dead.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Oh! It's a knockout! It's a knockout! Chuck Liddell has knocked Van Hester out. He has knocked him out with one punch. Right up the right hand.
He's a true warrior. This guy loves to fight tough guys, and he truly believes he's the best 205-pound fighter in the world.
Chuck Liddell certainly taking a risk tonight as the #1 light heavyweight contender. If he loses, he doesn't get his title shot. So why take this fight?
His reaction.
And he is motivated here, Joe.
What a psycho.
He is so intense. That's his trademark look.
After yet another first-round KO, the Iceman was in line for a title shot. An epic showdown with Randy Couture. The Iceman made a living defending against the takedown. But for the first time in his career, that defense failed.
I'd lost to him before. I respect Randy, he's a great fighter, and I'd lost to him.
Are you kidding me?
The defeat did little to discourage the Iceman, as he had now expanded his training, pushing himself harder than ever before.
When you're tired, let's go.
And trained arguably one of the greatest fighters in the history of the game.
Good.
Impossible to argue, right? I mean, one of the all-time most exciting guys to watch ever.
I'm looking to knock him out standing up.
He'd returned to fight in the Japanese Pride FC, where he put on an absolute striking masterclass for the fans in attendance.
All right, let's see what happens. And the bell goes. Here, you're right.
I am, when I fight, trying to hurt you. But I'm hoping you're okay when it's done.
I love the way Chuck fights because he's always pressing. He is always the predator. Boom! Big right hand.
Another first-round knockout put Liddell back on track for another title shot. But Tito Ortiz had set his sights on the championship as well. The two fighters had a long-time friendship, training together before making it big, even supporting one another after victories. But as money and fame came the way of Liddell, a bitterness developed.
There's been a lot of emotions, there's been a lot of talk. Tito, I'm going to start with you first. Tell me what's going to happen on April 2nd.
April 2nd. What's up? Iceman. The Iceman. With your belly, you look like more the snowman.
Ladies and gentlemen, talk is cheap. And now, finally, it's on.
The two men would have to settle their claims in the cage.
The Iceman, Chuck
The fighters come to the center of the octagon.
Tito has said he wants to stand and train with Chuck. Let's see if that's the case.
Final seconds of round number 1.
Oh, big right hand. What is that? What is he doing?
Tito saying,
End of the round.
You cannot damage me.
Whoa.
You cannot hurt me.
The fight was the first in a historic rivalry.
Tito chose to stand up with Chuck, Randy, and Tito picked his poison, and in the end, it proved to be lethal. He is the most devastating striker in the UFC.
Liddell had finally earned a rematch against the legend Randy Couture, with the title on the line.
It has finally arrived, the fight we have waited so long for.
Chuck the Iceman Liddell. What can be said about this guy? Consummate kickboxer, excellent wrestler, devastating striker with knockout power in each hand.
Hey, how you doing?
And now, it's time to go to war again.
Fight clean, fight hard. Let's have a good one.
This time, the Iceman was too much for the aging champ.
For the light heavyweight championship of the world.
Most memorable UFC moment.
The second fight with Randy.
He might be hurt. Yeah, Randy might be hurt. Randy trying to close in though now. And he goes down. He's down.
Boom, bang, that was the shot.
Knocking him out. Getting the title I've been after for so long.
And Chuck Liddell.
Oh, he is out.
Light heavyweight champion of the world.
Randy Couture is
Chuck
out.
Liddell is the light heavyweight champion.
Unbelievable. Wow. That guy has dynamite in his hands.
Liddell crossed into the mainstream, elevating MMA from a dismissed barbarian sport
It's a bare-fisted contest of brute strength and strategy.
to what it truly was, the most honest combat competition in existence.
I'm MMA champ, Chuck Liddell, and I stop things. People. Problems. Anything that moves.
He had roles in countless movies and TV shows, commercials, and endorsements. He was truly the first MMA superstar.
The big stars, especially when they start getting bigger, when you ask for autographs, half the time they're gonna say no. They won't do it. They go, no, I'm too busy, and they'll walk away. Chuck never once, ever did that.
6 months now, boy. You need protection, and we're it.
Just want to do my time, man.
Don't work like that, soldier boy. We'd like to use flash photography.
That's not a problem.
You're lucky my daughter's in the car. I'd kick every tooth in your head out.
And I'd rip your foot off when you try.
It went 4 rounds before Liddell hit him so hard, he broke Horn's eye socket.
Oh, he got nailed, that's why.
Horn verbally submitted on the ground.
He can't see. It's all over. It is all over. Chuck the Iceman Liddell has defeated Jeremy Horn, who has set the all-time record with his 12th victory here in the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
This is the 12th victory. What do you look for in the future now? What do you do now? What's next for you?
I'll fight anybody they put in front of me. Like I said before, I love the sport. I'll fight anybody.
The Iceman now had the most UFC victories in the sport's young history.
These two UFC warriors have faced off against each other twice before in the octagon.
Finally, the rubber match with Randy Couture. One fight to settle it all.
Randy the Natural Couture against Chuck the Iceman Liddell. Finally, they will settle the score. It is the one we have waited our entire lives for.
It was one of the most anticipated fights in UFC history.
Over the top by Chuck, got a big shot. Randy might be rocked.
A legacy-defining match for both fighters.
Oh, big one! But down goes Randy! Chuck trying to finish it!
He's out.
he'd become an icon of the sport. Mike Tyson-esque in his ability to end seemingly every fight with spectacular knockouts.
They love the Iceman, Chuck Liddell.
Fear of that is when you engage, when you step forward, you run in those big nuclear warheads.
Absolutely, the risk is getting caught in that range, but it's the only way that you're going to get close enough.
Wow, Babalu is in big trouble.
He's surviving, but barely.
At last, a rematch with Tito Ortiz.
When they fought the first time at UFC 47, they were popular, but it wasn't the same.
They start out as friends. It's the biggest grudge match in the history of mixed martial arts.
It's time! This fight is 5 rounds for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship of the world.
In their first fight, the two were budding stars. Now, they were the faces of the sport.
Tito catches Chuck with a right.
Tito is swinging for the fences. Tito's bleeding.
They're very unforgiving.
He does smell the blood.
It was a legitimate super fight with over 1 million pay-per-view buys.
Tito is hanging in there.
Tito is going to survive, it seems, for now. What a job done by Ortiz. He will survive round 1. Look at the smile on the face of Ortiz.
I don't know what he said to Chuck, but that's got to be a first round that rounds.
In many ways, the fight was a culmination of the Iceman's career.
Chuck using the long jab, trying to get a reaction.
He'd lifted the sport into a new era.
Chuck comes around the top. Chuck looking to close it out.
It was a brawl.
Tito gonna cover.
And that was just how Chuck liked it.
Chuck Liddell remains the light heavyweight champion.
With another KO of Ortiz, there was no question who reigned over this era of MMA. The Iceman lived by the sword, and sadly, he died by the sword. After a reign unlike any before him, a reign that included 22 wins with 18 knockouts, he stepped into the cage with Rampage Jackson. It was clear the Iceman's best days were now behind him.
For a fighter, it's up to him. Let him decide when he's ready to retire. I'll let you know. I love being out there. I love fighting.
But his love of fighting kept him coming back for more. Like many greats of the past, he just couldn't let it go.
I actually, towards the end of his career, I begged him not to so much, and he still wouldn't. He would not stop banging. He banged to the end.
The legend of Chuck Liddell still sold fights, and so he was allowed to carry on well past a reasonable point.
I mean, he's going to say he was going to quit. If I saw him get hurt really bad, like I did with Rich Franklin, right then it was done. And right then I said, that's it. That's the last one. No more.
His career went well past where it should have. Finally, after 5 brutal KOs, Liddell retired.
And I'm here today with my partner Lorenzo Fertitta to announce his retirement.
Most of all, I want to thank my fans. family. But
what do you miss most about fighting?
I miss everything about fighting. I mean, I miss fight week. I miss cutting weight. I miss everything.
Iceman Chuck Liddell wanted to come out of retirement and return to the octagon. At 48 years young, it seemed like a far-fetched idea, but for Chuck, it's not.
Because I think Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz, what they did for the sport, should be compensated for the rest of their lives. It bums me out they have to fight to make money.
At age 48, he returned for one last moment of glory.
He has been saying that he misses it. It was his favorite thing.
It ended tragically. With Liddell being brutally KO'd.
Tito Ortiz!
Chuck Liddell is an icon of MMA. A champion who lived and breathed fighting. Inspiring an entire generation of fighters and fans to gravitate to the sport. A marauder who left everything he had in the cage.
Chuck comes around the top. Chuck looking to close it out.
Chuck Liddell.
Nobody brings it home like Joe Vincent.
Nobody. Make it so.